The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in California, in Tarzana, California. I'm putting them together. I'm so excited about some of the things that we have going on this week and just was reading through some of the questions and suggestions that you guys have been posting, in particular on Facebook, and I'm just so glad and gratified to have an opportunity to be here. And I want to thank all of you for participating, because this show is meant to be fully participational. I don't even think that is a word. We're just making up words now today. It's that kind of a day. In any case, we are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism, the full gamut of autism. You know, sometimes I say the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there is some good, right? There is some stuff that, even though I hate the word, we quantify that, you know, it's really, really difficult. And sometimes, you know, there's some stuff that is ugly. I was joking with somebody the other day because we were talking about poo. And somebody said, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I said, we're autism moms. Of course, we're going to talk about poo. It happens. Poo happens. So in any case, we talk about the full gamut, the emotions that go along with it, some of the challenging behaviors that our kids will encounter, some of the difficulties that those of you who are teens and young adults and older adults on the autism spectrum, some of the things that you're running up against that are really difficult. And as parents, some of the financial worries that come, and dealing with other people's perceptions. It's a lot, right? But we talk about it all and hopefully help you to connect with people, experts, organizations, funding, more questions, because there are always more questions, and maybe some answers. That's really why we're here. But the entire show is meant to be totally interactive, and Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact with us. By the way, everything that we do, all the different ways that you can interact with us are all free and hopefully really user-friendly. And if you find that something isn't, please let us know, because our intention is to not make it more difficult for you. I will remind you that there's only one place to watch us live right now, and that's www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a desktop. It's a beautiful desktop that Suzette Garcia designed for us. And there's a box there that says, question that we're answering right now, some configuration of that. And that box is active right now. You can go in there and type whatever you'd like. Tell me where you are, what question you have, what you'd like to see on the show. Hit enter and it shows up magically on my screen. I love technology when it works, not so much when it doesn't. But anyway, we can have a conversation, and more importantly, you can have a conversation with some of the people that we have on the show, whether it's via Skype or people that we have in here live, experts, other parents, people that you can connect with and get answers and potentially more questions, because there are all, as I said, there's always more questions. I do want to remind you that there's a new way to watch us. You can catch us on the Autism Speaks Network. This is a free app that you can find in the App Store, whether you have an Android or an Apple device. Free app that you can download, and not only can you watch our show, but there are a host of other shows that you can watch as well that cover different aspects of autism. And you can do that all for free. So I encourage you to check that out and check out some of our sister stations that are on the Autism Speaks network. Okay, also want to remind everybody from the jump, especially if you're new here, I am not an expert at In autism, in ABA, applied behavior analysis, I am not an autism therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a nutritionist or a lawyer. I'm an autism mom and a former teacher. And I proudly own up to both of those things, right? And I'm somebody who has a passion for this subject, but really my job here is to connect you with people who can help to answer some of your questions. My son was diagnosed with autism 7 years ago, and he is now 9.5 in a completely fully included, mainstreamed classroom, doing so wonderfully. And that is not because I solved this issue. It's because I got hooked up with answers, and I got hooked up with people who had a passion for helping our kids, and we were able to do a lot of great things with him. And as I said, it wasn't because I figured it out, it wasn't because I am so smart, because that's not the case, and it wasn't because I had the money to do it, because I can assure you that wasn't the case. But I got really lucky, and that I met some people, and then I started asking questions, and I got hooked up with more people. My son had early intervention that was paid for by the great state of California. I always like to remind myself and everyone else about that. Don't I love to pay my taxes in the state of California, because boy, was that a good investment for me personally. But it's so important to me that all of you, wherever you are, whether you're in Kansas or whether you're in India, that you know that we're here for you. We know that you have an individual experience with autism, and we want to help you to get the answers, resources, and connections you need to be able to help you in whatever way you need. So all of that and more. Okay. We like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense of it within our individual lives to see where it fits in with either with ourselves or with our children on the autism spectrum. So today we are featuring a phrase that a word that we've never used before in the jargon of the day. Thrilled to put this out to you. And the term is hyperlexia. Okay, very rare that anybody will hear this term, but it may be that you're at a meeting and they say they want to test your child to see if they're hyperlexic, or they may even tell you that your child is hyperlexic. So what exactly does this mean? Our actual definition: this is a syndrome characterized by an intense fascination with letters or numbers and an advanced reading ability. Now, I don't know about you, but the first time I heard about this, I went, wow, a syndrome where somebody has an advanced reading ability? Really? We want to call it a syndrome? But there is another side to hyperlexia. Yes, there's a plus to it. Individuals who can read and are super interested in reading. But when we get to our working definition, what we see is that having an advanced ability in the area of being able to read text without necessarily having the ability to communicate in other ways. So you might have a 3-year-old who is able to read a sign but isn't able to talk. You might have a 5-year-old who is able to sit there and read War and Peace out loud to you, which is amazing, but they don't understand it, and they can talk, but they can't put a sentence, they can't tell you what it means, right? So there are some things that they can do for children who are hyperlexic that can help to turn the more disabling aspect of the hyperlexia into less of an area of a weakness, so that area of strength can really shine. It isn't something to be afraid of, but it is something to be very aware of. We know that our kids sometimes will have perseverations, a word that I never ever used before I was an autism mom. But our kids will get drawn to something and they become obsessed with it. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me. Beg your pardon. But in any case, they get really and perseveration, it's like obsession with on steroids, right? They're going to perseverate on it no matter what happens. If your child doesn't have this, be grateful, because getting a child off of something that they're perseverating on can be really difficult when they're on the autism spectrum. We all have the ability to perseverate on something, right? But I'm sure if ever in your life you've experienced when you really got into something and you finally turned to somebody and said, I've got to get out of this. My husband and I were having a joke the other day because I had a song in my head that I could not get out. And he said to me, I said, somebody, do something. I said, slap me, throw me down a flight of stairs, something. I got to get this song out of my head. I'm driving myself crazy. And he said, well, I have the cure for it, but you're not going to like it. And it was to put a different song in my head that is still playing in my head, right? But you know how when you get to that space where you're like, somebody do something, I can't stop thinking about it anymore. Imagine for our kids, we have a sense of humor about it, and we have things that we can do to take our mind off of it, and they don't yet have those skills. And sometimes with hyperlexia, it's obviously words or letters, and what we see is a child who literally can't do anything else. They're just fascinated with letters. It's what they want to do all the time, and they don't want to participate in other activities. So we don't want to let hyperlexia go. We want to make sure that we get some help and support. And by the way, we do see that a small percentage of kids with autism will be deemed hyperlexic. But again, get some help and support, because it can turn into a real strength. It really can, but we don't want to leave the child in the perseveration with the letters and the numbers. Okay, hyperlexia, a new term that you can put in your back pocket. And if you see these kinds of things with your child and hear somebody talking about this, then you'll have an idea of what it is. Now, we also like to start every morning with a question. We have the question of the day. And all this week, we've been talking about things in the neighborhood of compassion. This question is really interesting, and the way you guys have been responding to it is very interesting to me. The question was, when have you felt real compassion from someone? When have you experienced that? Can you put your finger on it? It's one of those things that I think you got to stop and think about it for a minute. Okay, when have you felt true, real compassion, and what did it look like? Because, we're trying to have more compassion, and we're trying to teach compassion to our children. I think it's worthwhile to examine, when have we truly felt it? And I was thinking about this the other day, and of course there are many times in my life when I have felt real compassion. But the time that really sticks out in my mind and is very telling to me, I remember I was a senior in college, and my dad, who had struggled with cancer for many years, had a stroke. He had a heart attack and a stroke, and he was in intensive care, and we didn't know if he was going to survive it. And many of our family members, extended family, came, and we were camping in the waiting room there for the not urgent care, what is it? ICU, the intensive care unit. That's what it is. And many people, there were times when it would just go in waves, and somebody would cry and somebody would laugh, because it's life. And if you were crying, somebody would try to comfort you. That's what we all want to do. We want to show compassion by comforting. And I can remember there was a moment when things were really looking bad. By the way, he lived many more years after this, so it had a happy ending at that time. And there were aunts who would descend, and they would hug me, and they would say, it's going to be okay, and a bunch of those platitudes that they meant well. It wasn't really helping me. It wasn't helping me at all. And I can remember at one point I was just sitting there and I was crying, and one of my uncles, who was not somebody who spoke a great deal, and this was his baby brother, left the room, came back, and I had not even realized it, but I was on the last Kleenex in the box. And he had sat there and thought to himself, there's nothing I can do for this young woman. But he saw that I was on the last Kleenex, and he went and he got me a brand new, really soft, good, because we were using the hospital tissues, which are basically industrial wallpaper. And he brought me this box of tissues, and he put it on my lap. And I looked at him, and I could see that he was in pain about the whole thing. And I said, thank you so much. And he was just very very quiet, and he sat down next to me, and he said, "I'm here for you if you need something." 26 years later, it makes me well up because it was so compassionate. He didn't assume what my needs were. He saw a need and said, "I'm going to fill it," but didn't need to be thanked for it, although appreciated being thanked for it, and said, "I'm here for you." And truly, it was a moment of real compassion for me. And along the way, when my child was diagnosed with autism, there were a lot of people who had a lot of reactions, right? We all know. People will think they're being helpful by making all kinds of, well, you need to do this, and you need to call this person, and you need to watch this, and you need to hear this, and, right? Overwhelming. But when I think about it, the people who really helped me the most were people who said, "I'm here for you. You let me know when you need something, and I'm here for you." Right? But I do ask you guys, when have you felt real compassion from someone? You guys have liked the question a great deal, but very few of you have been able to put it into words, and I understand that. It's a hard thing to think about, but I encourage you to, because if we all say, here's when we felt compassion, then maybe people will get a better idea of how to show compassion. That's what I'm hoping for today. So we'll check in a little bit later on Facebook and see if you guys have been able to come up with, at this moment in time, there isn't a lot, there are a few, but you guys have been liking it and sharing it, which I totally appreciate. Hey, while you're on the Facebook page answering, do us a favor and give us a like there. We really appreciate it. And when you like the Facebook page and do a couple of other things, you can be entered to win this cow signed by Temple Grandin, or this book, Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism, My Life with Autism, by Temple Grandin, also signed by Temple Grandin herself. Okay, we're going to be giving those away tomorrow, so you don't have a whole lot of time left, and there are 3 things that you have to do. One of them is liking the Facebook, but while you're there, get that done. Easy to do. Doesn't cost anything. Okay, we always have a topic of the week, and if you can't guess, our topic this week, all week, has been not only compassion, but compassion in action. It's great to talk it, but we have to walk it. This is a subject that's been a hot topic in my family, and I think in a lot of people's homes, with everything that's been happening in the news and everything that can happen, across a lifetime, how important it is to take a moment to show compassion. And by the way, we can show compassion to ourselves, and we can show compassion to other people. It does not have to be someone that we know. It does not have to be someone that we understand. It does not have to be someone whose plight is the same as ours. We've spent a lot of time talking about this lately in our meetings, about the fact that we want for people to show compassion to our individuals on the spectrum, to not assume and to not see them as one lump sum, to see them as individuals, to treat them as individuals, to be respectful of the fact that they are differently abled, not less than, but differently abled. And how do we get anybody to do anything in life? If we want them to show compassion to our individuals on the spectrum, it has to start at home. It has to start and stop with us, that we are doing these things, that we're showing compassion. And we can't just be showing compassion to other individuals on the autism spectrum. We need to be showing compassion to everyone. How many times, I certainly have had this happen to me, that someone who has had a child on the autism spectrum, has been someplace and run into somebody and had a reaction like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on," and found out later on that that there was something going on, extenuating circumstances, and in some cases that it was autism. The first time that I met Nancy Alsbaugh Jackson's son, Wyatt, I was someplace where I had my son, and we were going to be a part of an interview, And I didn't know that other parents were going to be there with children on the autism spectrum, but there was a daycare that was there, and there were kids playing on the daycare, and my son kept requesting to go play with individuals that were at the daycare. You want to play with the kids? Mom, I want to play with the kids. And I kept on saying, no, we got to be here for the interview. So there was a fence separating us from those kids, kind of metaphorically, but virtually, literally. And at one point, a kid came running up to us, and he started talking to us, and I thought that it was a kid from the daycare and had a little bit of a reaction of, I have been standing here telling my son that he can't come over the fence to talk to you, so you can't come over the fence to talk to him, and was a little, because it was an older child, and I was and he was excited to talk to my child, and I was giving him a little bit of, pushback, because I wasn't overly rude, but I was being a little stern, and it was Nancy's son, and I was having this reaction to, you should know better, and you should be over there, and he was hurt by that. And then, of course, I found out that it was Nancy's son, and that he had every right to be on the other side of the fence. That was my assumption, and this was the way I met him. To this day, I feel bad about that. I think Wyatt completely forgave me for that and has moved on, but I felt bad about this, that assumption that we know what's going on, and we don't. So we talk about compassion in all things, that we open our hearts and minds to who do we have contact with that could benefit from a little help and support and a little compassion. So we keep talking about that this week, and we'll be talking how we can teach these things to our children and maybe in the process learn from them. To that end, some of the different things that we're going to talk about today, we have a school tip for you. We have a very special guest from Autism Speaks. Our guest is Lisa Goring, who's going to be joining us in just a little while, and our BCBA friend Angela Persicki is back with us today during the second hour, and we're going to be talking about some of the different building block skills to teach our children so that they are more likely to be successful in showing compassion. All of that and more, and your questions coming up. Stick with us. We're going to take a break and be back with you in just a minute. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back. I want to remind everybody that we have a very big deal happening tomorrow. We are going to, during the program tomorrow, have the drawing for the lovely Temple Grandin cow and the Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism by Temple Grandin that is signed. This lovely, lovely book. And I'll show you even the signature we have here. It's beautiful, and it has the foreword by Oliver Sacks. Why can't I find it? In any case, I mentioned earlier, and I thought we should just go over very quickly how you can win these things. It's got Temple Grandin's signature there, and again, it is on the bottom of the cow. Gotta love that. All you need to do, there's 3 things, and you can find them on our Facebook page. You need to like our Facebook page if you haven't already. Then you'll need to share the petition, just a little blurb about the petition that we have people signing. And I'm sort of, my pin has gotten a little rumpled today. We're wearing these infinity ribbons, and they're easy to make, it costs you maybe 10 cents to make one of these. And we're wearing these, it's an infinity ribbon. You know, everybody wears different colored ribbons for different causes. Well, you can make this ribbon any color you want, but it's turned on its side and it's an infinity ribbon. We show you a video here about how to do it. And the reason is because with ABA, with applied behavior analysis for autism, the possibilities are infinite, and we need to let people know that that's the truth. You know, a lot of people still don't know that. We have it's within our grasp to make that available to more children here in the United States, and a whole lot of people have fought a really long time for that to be a reality. It was the intent for it to be written into the Affordable Care Act, and for there to be really this federal mandate that all of the states that really level the playing field, because it was going to be included in the 10 essential health benefits, behavioral health, specified ABA for autism. That's what everybody fought for. There have been senators who have been sending letters to Catherine Sebelius, who is the our representative. I am like not able to talk. Yes, Secretary of Health and Human Services. I can't find my words today because I get so excited. Secretary of Health and Human Services, and she was given the task of defining what those 10 essential health benefits were, and instead she gave the power back to the individual states. Now, this doesn't just affect autism. I want to be abundantly clear about that. It affects so much more than that. But it really affects autism, and we talked about this yesterday, how some of the states are choosing not to specify ABA for autism. We really don't want that to happen. We don't want to take 7 steps backward at this point, right? So that's what the petition is about. So when you're sharing it on your Facebook page, that's all that we're sharing, to ask her to please take that power back. It was given to her, and to ask her to please define it the way it was specified. Everybody understands. Nobody's joking or kidding. It was very clear as they were passing this law that that was what they wanted, was ABA for autism. It's right. It's a thing whose time has come. So share that on your Facebook page. And the third thing you need to do is to sign up for our free newsletter. And once you do that, you are entered for the cow and the book. And we're giving them away tomorrow. So today is really, we got about 24 hours left before we close the gate on that, and then we're going to give them away. You don't want to miss an opportunity to win these fabulous, fabulous items. Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're joined by Lisa Goring from Autism Speaks. We're going to talk about some of the different family services that are available to you at no cost through their programs. Really exciting information we're happy and thrilled to give you. So stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of the community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have a very special guest joining us via Skype. Lisa Goring is with us, and she is the Vice President of Family Services from Autism Speaks. So thrilled to have her here talking about some of the different services they provide. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks
you so much for having me.
So thrilled to have you. There's so many different things that Autism Speaks to, and I really have to commend you guys because you are a presence and you are a very visible presence. And I think sometimes it certainly is to the benefit of all of us that you are, but sometimes it's to your detriment because you do so much that I think some of it gets lost in the shuffle. And I'm really thrilled to have you here today to point up some of the different things that you do that families could be taking advantage of. Let's start by saying a little bit about your background and how you came to work in this field.
Well, actually, I'm the parent of 2 children. I have a daughter who's 20, and my son Andrew is 16, and he has autism. And my background actually is in business. I worked for Saks Avenue for 19 years. And Andrew was about to start kindergarten. I was fortunate enough to stop working for a little to try and get him integrated into our community. And so I got very involved with our local school district and with autism organizations locally. And then when Autism Speaks had started up, about a year after they started, they formed a family services committee, and that was made up of board members, and they needed someone who knew autism but had a business background who could execute some of the initiatives that the Family Services Committee had put forth. And so I was fortunate enough to first be hired as a consultant and then later on to actually be able to head up Family Services as it became a part of the Autism Speaks mission. So I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity and so blessed to be able to meet so many wonderful people.
Well, we're thrilled that you're there because you know firsthand, and we were saying during the break, whenever I hear that somebody has a child on the spectrum who's a teenager, I say, oh, I'm so glad to know because I'm going to need help later on. I'll be calling you about that when we get to 16. Maybe when we get to 13, I don't know. In any case, let's talk about some of the different things, some of the different services that are available to families that they can check out and where they can find them.
Right. So at Autism Speaks, our goal is really to connect families with resources. So we do that in a variety of ways. One of the ways that we do that is through Autism Response Team. So we actually have trained staff. They're regionalized throughout the country that answer emails and phone calls from families. And we have a bilingual Autism Response Team member that actually can help our Spanish-speaking families as well. And they really they answer about 2,000 emails or phone calls a month.
Wow.
And so that's one of the ways that we're able to connect families with resources. We also have a tremendous amount of online resources. Everything is free of charge. We don't charge families for anything that we can provide to them. And so we have things throughout the journey of autism. So from when you first get that diagnosis, we have a 100-day kit for newly diagnosed families, and that to families free of charge. And we personalize that kit with information specific to the child's age and location so that they can really get started during those first few months in terms of finding services, but also in terms of understanding how they may be feeling, how other members of the family may be feeling, and what they can do to help their child.
Yeah, that 100-day kit is an absolutely amazing thing, and they can do one of two things. Correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes you guys update things, and I'm not always kept up to date. But used to be that you could either send away for it and it would be mailed to you, or that you could just download it. Is that still true?
Those options are still available.
Okay.
So anyone can go online, you can download it free of charge, or you can call one of our Autism Response Team members and ask for a kit, and we'll send that to you free of charge.
And again, where can they find the number to call an autism response person, and where can they find the link to get the 100-day kit?
All of that is available on autismspeaks.org. The toll-free number is 888-AUTISM-2. Or you can email familyservices@autismspeaks.org.
Okay, and if that's all you guys did, that would be a great service, but that's only scratching the surface of the kinds of things that you guys do. Tell us a little bit about the School Community Toolkit.
So we know that more and more children with autism are being included in their local school communities. And so we really wanted to provide information to all those in the school building, whether it's the bus driver, the school nurse, peers, office staff, how to best support the learner with autism. So it's not curriculum, but it's information about autism, about Asperger's syndrome, how you can best support them in your specific environment. And so, again, anyone can go onto our website at autismspeaks.org and download that resource free of charge. And one thing just to mention about all of our toolkits, we are so fortunate that we are able to reach out to experts and clinicians throughout the country to provide us with input as to what should be included and the best types of resources. But then we always have a parent or a family advisory committee as well to really make sure that we're meeting the needs of our families.
Absolutely wonderful. We just had a question come in from somebody who wants to know if the toolkit is available in different languages. I know you mentioned Spanish.
Right, it is available. The 100-Day Kit is available in Spanish, and some of our other resources are available and translated on our website, but that's something that we continue to work on.
Great, absolutely wonderful. And I know you, because you have a teenager on the spectrum, that this is a particular interest for you, this transition time, and Autism Speaks has been working really hard on this. What's available for parents who've got those teens and you want to make that smooth transition to adulthood?
Right, so about 2 years ago, we introduced our transition toolkit, again, bringing together a great group of people with autism, experts and clinicians and families to be able to provide sort of a roadmap for the journey from adolescence to adulthood, understanding that the educational entitlements that are there when your child is still in school are no longer available once they enter adult services. And so to really prepare families and individuals with autism for that journey. And one of the guiding principles or hallmarks of that is really self-advocacy, and to really be able to start teaching those skills early and often so that your child is be as independent as possible in their adult life.
Okay, so again, parents can get that toolkit.
To download, or they can download it, or they can call and we will send them one.
Okay, can you talk a little bit to us about the work of the Advancing Futures for Adults with Autism? That I understand that it's a consortium that Autism Speaks has started and that you guys are spearheading. What does it do, and how can our parents get access to information about that?
So Advancing Futures for Adults with Autism started in 2008, and it's a consortium of organizations that came together to really focus on the needs of adults with autism. And we knew that it's such an important topic and so all-encompassing that we would be a stronger group if we did that together as opposed to each group doing it individually. And so we have 15 different organizations throughout the country. Some are national, some are more local. And we meet to really focus on issues of employment, of housing and residential supports, community integration, and public policy, because we know that in order to better meet the needs of autism, there really need to be some public and private partnerships. And so I would encourage anyone who's interested in advancing futures for adults with autism to go on to afaa-us.org. And that's a website. It has all of our partner information, and it has updates on some of the work that we're doing.
Okay, awesome. Now, I also understand that you guys have a really important checklist. If you've got a teen or a young adult and you're thinking about having them drive, it's a big decision for a lot of autism families about whether or not they should pursue getting driving lessons and a driver's license. What is your checklist? Where can we find it? And what does it really help us with? Oops.
We do at Autism, so we provide grants. Are we still on?
Yes, I think I lost you. We got a little frozen for a second. I was asking about the driving checklist.
Right. So that's one of the areas that we were able to fund through our Family Services Community Grants. So since 2007, we have provided funding to different service providers throughout the United States to really work on specific projects that can help those in their local community.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulty with Lisa. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, see if we can connect with her a little bit stronger, because I still want to talk to her about the driving checklist, which I'm fascinated by, but also I want to talk to her a little bit about those grants that she was talking about. And, you know, a lot of money is raised for Autism Speaks, and how often do we get to hear where some of that money is going? It's amazing, some of the things that they're doing with that money, some of the things that I want you to know about at home, some really incredible grants that they're giving, and what helps them to choose what their goal is when they're choosing who to give these grants to. So we're going to take a break and be back more with Lisa Goring after these messages.
I am Karen Driscoll. I'm a Marine Corps wife and mother of 3. My oldest son has autism. The strains on our typical military families are extraordinary. You add on the challenges of autism, access to care issues, and at times having to pay for effective treatments, and these families are pushed to the brink. We've lived in 5 different homes. That means 5 different medical communities, 5 different school districts, and 5 different state-run programs. The biggest challenge I face as a mother is going from bottom of wait list to bottom of wait list, never getting access to the effective services our children require. I feel like I'm constantly fighting for these services. We are working on a bill in Congress called the Caring for Military Kids with Autism Act that works to true up these policy deficits. You ask any service member overseas today, what can we do for you? They will always answer, please take care of my family at home.
Visit autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back. We have Lisa Goring, who's the Vice President of Family Services for Autism Speaks, joining us once again via Skype. Lisa, before we had a little bit of technical difficulty there, we were talking about the checklist for driving, and we weren't able to hear your response. What does it do, and how can families find that?
So on our website, on autismspeaks.org, we actually have a video and a manual developed by Beth Israel that's called Advise to Drive, and it provides information for individuals with autism and their families about what they may want to think about in terms of if they feel that they're ready and able to drive. And that's just one of the ways that we're really able to provide funding to a local organization, but then have it have a broader impact for the community at large.
Well, and I was mentioning during the break that we want to talk about these grants. You guys give a large number of grants to different organizations. What's the goal of that? How do you pick who to give it to? And what really is that decision-making process?
So we have several different grant mechanisms. They all work, they're all a competitive grant process, and we really engage our volunteers. So the community grants is our largest grant program. It's been run since 2007, and we have given millions of dollars out to different community organizations to provide services and really to increase the field of service providers. And so organizations will apply for a grant in the areas of education, recreation, and community activities, or young adult and adult services. Mm-hmm. All of them are reviewed by a person with autism or a family member that has a child with autism, as well as a service provider. They're scored, and then those that score well move on to the Family Services Committee, which is again made up of professionals and family members, and then recommendations are made to the Board of Directors of Autism Speaks.
Wonderful.
And so the community grants program really is, the goal is to really provide funding on a local level, but then also to provide funding that can really help the community overall.
Wonderful. And of course, this driving grant, a great example of that. Can you give us another example of a community grant that you've been able to give that has an impact for all of us?
So another one that has had great impact, we gave a grant to Ohio State, and they've developed a workbook called Safe Signals that really provided information for people with autism, room by room safety, with a focus on fire safety. And so, when you're in the kitchen, how do you keep yourself safe? And so the skills to do that, and there's a video and a manual for that as well. What do you do in the bathroom? What do you do in other parts of your home? So that room by room, it really provided with people with autism with some really concrete examples of how to keep
I love that. So
more independent.
And how do we find access to that? That's on the website as well?
All on our website. So we do have a lot of information on our website, certainly for family service as well as awareness, advocacy, and science. There is a good search mechanism to help find those things, and if you can't find them, you can always
We're losing you a little bit. Okay, so we can call the number to find it, and we can also email. But I want to suggest that people take some time and go onto your website and click around. It's very user friendly, and from time to time you guys update and move things, but very user friendly. And you could spend hours just shopping around for information on autismspeaks.org. It really is amazing. We talked a little bit yesterday about advocacy and about research, and today we're talking about the family services. It's really very comprehensive, all the different things that you can find there. Lisa, I really want to thank you for being a parent who saw a need and took initiative, and now that you're serving in a way that helps and supports all of us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure spending some time with you this afternoon.
Well, and we'll check back with you from time to time. And I know I'm going to be calling you as we get closer to my child being in the teen years. I'm counting you as a resource.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Lisa Goring from Autism Speaks talking about the wide variety of services that they have available. So do check out their website, www.autismspeaks.org, and spend some time. Click on the tabs, pull down some menus, see all the things that there are. Even if you don't use half of them right now, you'll see that there is a great sense of all the things that somebody might need at different points on this journey on that website. We're going to take a break and be back with a school tip for you after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, we just got finished talking with Lisa Goring from Autism Speaks, and one of the things that she mentioned was that they have a toolkit to go to school to help all the different people at school to understand autism. Really wonderful resource, and you can get it, you can download it off their website, autismspeaks.org. And every week we try to give you a school tip, something to think about, something to chew on, something that might have the potential to set your child up for success at school. And the thing that I had scheduled to talk about today, because we're talking about compassion, is finding a way for you to show compassion on your child's schoolyard in whatever way, you know, that can take so many different forms, right? But I find that when we are a presence at the school, even in a small way. You know, from time to time we talk about, usually people don't have money and time, but sometimes they have one. Like you might have a little, and when I talk about time, I'm talking about a little bit of time. Like it can take 30 seconds, or you can take 15 minutes, or you can spend an hour a day, right? Depending on what's available in your bank of time. And when we talk about money, sometimes it can be really, really a small amount of money that makes a big difference. But asking yourself, okay, what do I have in my arsenal? What do I have at my disposal? And how can I show compassion? It can be as simple as when you pick up your child at the gate, that you take the time to talk to one other child. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who is in your child's classroom. Case in point, and early on when my child was diagnosed with autism, I felt like I had neither time nor money. If somebody had said to me, oh, I'm sure you have some time and some money, I probably would have gotten very angry and given them a lecture and told them to step off, right? Because I was a little oversensitive about it. And I remember there, even before, the summer before my son started kindergarten, he was getting speech services throughout the summer, and we were moving to a new school. He had been at preschool at a different school, and we were moving into the neighborhood school, and I kind of kicked and groused about it. I said I didn't want to be there, and now I love being there. In any case, he was getting speech services during the summer, and by the way, you can ask for that. In your IEP, you can specify that your child needs ongoing support during the summer, and he was at that time. He no longer needs that, but he was at that time. And I would bring him, and when we first started with that speech therapist, I would stay in the room. But as I grew to know and trust her, and I don't trust anybody in the beginning, but I did eventually, and she's a fabulous, fabulous speech path. It was more productive for me to not be in the room. And we kind of slowly faded. At first I was in the room, and then I was on the other side of a partition, and then I was outside the door, and then I hung out in the office, in the air-conditioned office. And oddly enough, so I would have maybe 20, 25 minutes in the office where I could work on something else, and I took the time to, because I didn't have any other time. And there was one boy who was in the office. I don't know whether it was at that time that his brother was getting, I don't remember what the circumstances were, but he had broken his arm. So it became this thing that he sat in the office, and I would sit there too, and we were stuck there for the same 20 minutes. And he was probably in second or third grade. And I try to be respectful of other children and not, I'm a stranger to this child. Even though we're sitting in the office of the school, I'm a stranger to this child, and I like to be respectful of that. But over a period of time, things would happen. Somebody would come by and drop something. He would comment on something. We started having little snippets of conversation, this young man and I. And I didn't think much of it. But eventually, I can remember there was a time that there was a book sitting there, and we read it together. It was a children's book, and he said he really wanted to read it, but he was struggling with a word, and we ended up reading it together. This young man and I became friends. And as I said, I didn't think anything of it until a couple of years, fast forward a couple of years later, and there was a situation in which I was not at school, and everybody was out on the playground, and somebody said something to my child that was mean and inappropriate, and who stepped forward and said, I don't think so. That little boy, because he knew my child, because he would see my child come in at the end of every speech session, and I would pick him up and take him home. He didn't have a relationship with my child. He had a relationship with me and knew me to be somebody that was a full person. When we show compassion, we show ourselves as full people. I told the story the other day of the high school teacher who taught neurotypical kids, was at the hardware store in the summer, and an ex-student walked up and looked at him in his shorts and said, I didn't realize that you had legs. Right? But when we show compassion, we show ourselves as full people who are parents, and that we have children, and this by then, I think he was probably in fourth grader, but this fourth grader showed compassion to my child because he knew me. So when you're at school, I know sometimes it's hard. You've had a hard day. You don't want to see people. There's kids. They're screaming. Even if you take a second and make eye contact with somebody and are polite to them, whether it's a teacher, an aide, another child, if you see a child picking on another child, stepping in and saying, hey, what's going on here? You become a presence on the schoolyard, and it translates to your child. I have seen this happen, and I'm not the only one who has seen this happen. So it may be that that's all you have time for. If you have time for more, why not? I eventually started directing a project, because that was my background, was in theater, directing a project at my child's school, but I didn't start with his grade. And it wasn't because I thought this up, but they said, we need somebody to teach this project, do a theater project with the fourth grade class. And my child was he in first grade or second grade? I think he was in second grade when that happened. And I said, okay, and went in and worked with fourth graders. And everybody said to me, well, why aren't you volunteering in your child's classroom? Because that's where the need was. Can I tell you the payoff for my child for that? All of those fourth graders who are now sixth graders look out for my child. They know his name. They know my name. Every time I set foot on campus, those kids, hey, Mrs. Penrod, how's it going? How you doing? And they're, hi, Jem. And they look out for him. Huge impact on his life. If we see people in public, we can be in a grocery store and somebody says, Mrs. Penrod, Jem, how are you? My kid lights up. He has a community. And it wasn't because I went in and volunteered in his classroom. But by the way, volunteering in your own child's classroom, a great thing to do. And it can be so small. Even if you go in once in the year, go in with a good attitude and look at the children as individuals, it makes a difference. It really does. It makes a difference in how the staff treats you. It makes a difference in how the kids treat you. And it ultimately makes a difference in how they treat your child. It really is quite an amazing thing. I know parents who don't have time to go in even once in a year. I do. And those parents try to do something. We've had Moira Giammatteo before on the show. And she had shared, I don't know whether she actually does it, but she had shared a story with me about a parent who every year would throw a pizza party for the kids in the school, the kids in the classroom with her child to say thank you. Hey, thanks for being his friend. And, we go, oh, really? Do we have to give pizza to our kids to be friends? Well, no, we don't have to. But if it works, if it's actually reinforcing and it increases the behavior, and she says the cost of it, it's like $25 in pizza, and she has kids that are thrilled that her child is in their classroom for $25. I know not everybody has the $25, but if you do, and if that's the only thing you can give and it works, hey, how fabulous. And for those of you who don't have the $25 and don't have the time, when you pick up your child, talk to somebody, be nice, talk to another parent. It could lead to a play date. All of those things help our kids. So something that's within our control, but ask yourself, what can you be doing to show compassion at the school? I do think it translates into compassion for your child. Just my opinion. All right, it's time, and we're a little bit late, to go to the A word. This is the wonderful documentary that's being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. Jack Riley in real time now is actually 4, and you can catch these episodes and see how he's doing now, but we're showing the beginning of the series, working our way through it. So we're looking at a time period today where he's about 6 months into early intensive behavioral intervention, and he's learning a lot, and his parents are too. He's learning about how to transition from a really preferred activity to something else. And of course, when we start doing that, we start going from a preferred activity to a preferred activity. But eventually, we're going to go from a preferred activity to something that isn't preferred. Because really, that's what school's all about. And that's what life is all about. Sometimes having to put something that you're doing down and go do something you really don't want to do. It's tough for us, tough for our kids. But take a look. We'll see Jack Riley starting to get it. This is the A word.
wants to watch the duck song. He'll want to do it for an hour. Okay. Okay,
One
Turk.
time.
One time duck song, okay?
Mike warns Jack Riley that he will be allowed to watch the duck song one time only. He does this so Jack Riley can anticipate what will happen once the song finishes. Transitions are difficult for him and others with autism because they have a hard time anticipating what comes next. Because of this, they have a hard time planning ahead and being flexible. These skills are considered executive functions.
You guys have to watch this duck song. Oh my gosh! I gotta turn the music. I gotta turn the sound.
And he said to the man running the stand, hey, bump, 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 got any grapes? The man said, look, this is getting old. I mean, lemonade's all we've ever sold. Why not give it a go? The duck said, how about no?
How about no?
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Till the very next day. Okay,
go. Why not give it a go? Yay!
All done.
Say bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye. No. Oh, no.
Bye-bye,
No.
duck. Later.
You know, anger's a cool thing at different times, but not right now.
Hey, we'll watch it again later. Say bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Say, I'll miss you. I'm sad.
I'm sad. I'm sad. I'm sad.
Okay. Learning how to transition is a life skill. Every day, one is constantly transitioning from one activity to the next, and he needs to cope with changes without tantrums and not be fixated on doing the same activity repetitively. Watching the duck song is incredibly reinforcing for him, and he needs something just as interesting to transition to.
Hey, Jack, here's Dad waddling. Waddle, waddle. Waddle away, waddle, waddle. Waddle away, waddle, waddle.
There you go.
Oh, the big old shark's gonna get you.
I'm gonna swim and get you. I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, he's been really good about saying what he wants lately. We've really been pushing language a lot.
More shark!
More shark!
Ah, more shark! Okay, ready? Ah, more shark! What should we play?
Tassel.
Tozzle? Well, tozzle's for brushing your teeth. Do you want to brush your teeth? Tozzle's this game on his iPod that he only gets when he brushes his teeth. Say, Mommy, I want tozzle.
You want tozzle?
I don't know if that means he wants to brush his teeth.
It means he wants tozzle, but sometimes we brush his teeth to get him to get it. Show me E. Show me ah. Good job. He doesn't like it when I look because he knows I'm going to take it away. I'll count you down before I take it away, okay? Cheryl's tactic to help Jack Riley transition to the next activity is to count him down. He understands that once she reaches 1, that the preferred item will be taken away. No lollygagging. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready? Okay, toothbrushing. We're gonna go like this. Hey, that's not how we do it. Watch Mommy. Can you do that? Do that. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Good job.
Yay, Zach Riley,
Good job.
That was pretty good.
5, 4, 3. Sit down.
Hi, buddy.
Sit down.
Brushing.
3, 2, 1. Yes, I know you know. Okay, we're gonna go bottoms. Like that, okay? Ready? You can do it. 1, 2, 3. Yay!
You did it, Jack.
Good job.
Good job, Jack.
Jack Riley, we're gonna say bye-bye to Tozzle. Are you ready? Can you give me Tozzle? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, give it to Mommy, please. Good boy. I know it's hard, isn't it? Can you march back to Mommy? March, 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 march! A taste of honey. Taste of honey. And you hug your mommy. That's kind of nice. You want your ears kissed or your nose? Ears. You want your ears kissed or your eyes?
Ice. You want your ears kissed or your chin? Chin. Where's your chin? Ears?
Welcome back. I want to remind all of you that you can be watching all of the A Word in its entirety on their very own YouTube channel, and I encourage you to do that. Really an amazing series. But right now, we are joined by the fabulous BCBA Angela Persicki. So thrilled to have you back.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that it had been a while since you've been here.
I'm excited to be back.
I'm thrilled that you're here. We've been talking all week long about compassion, and I wanted to have you come in and talk a little bit about how there's so many different skills that are involved in compassion, perspective taking, and
emotion.
Yes, thank you. So many different things. It's hard for us sometimes. We get caught up in our day, and yet we need to model this behavior for our kids, and we need to set themselves up for success, and they're being able to show compassion. So we did ask our viewers the other day, how do your children show compassion? It wasn't the most answered question that we've had. Some of them wrote in and said how they showed, but a lot of people, shied away from it because some of their kids haven't gotten to that point yet. So you had suggested there were a couple of things that we could talk about to set our kids up for that success. So what would you like to talk about first?
Well, let's first talk a little bit about perspective taking.
Okay.
And this is something you mentioned earlier this week, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We talk about perspective taking all the time.
All right.
And Dr. Dorian Granpichet was talking about it a little bit for us, that we need to take perspective when looking at challenging behavior. Why is the child engaging, in that behavior?
Yeah, what does the child want? What is the child thinking?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what is involved in compassion. It almost is a direct example of perspective taking, because in order to have compassion for someone, you have to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Look at things from their perspective. Why are they feeling this way? What led them to feel this way? And how are they going to act because of this? And what can you do to make them feel better?
Yeah.
Or is there a way to make them feel better? And this is all perspective taking.
It really
Every
is.
little piece of that. And empathy too, being able to understand what someone is going through. And this is all what we call perspective taking, which is very difficult for children with autism.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. It's difficult for us.
True.
It really is. And when I think about that, what you just said, the difference between empathy and compassion, because sometimes, I might try to understand what somebody else is going through, but I can't always. I can't imagine what the families of Newtown, Connecticut have gone through. I can try, but I really can't get there, but I can still show compassion, even if I don't have a full understanding of what they're feeling. Compassion, very powerful, powerful tool. Okay, so we have to start somewhere then with having the ability to take perspective. And our kids a lot of times don't come front-loaded with that.
No.
They don't have the ability to look and see that somebody is feeling something different than themselves.
Exactly. And we would start with just looking at senses and emotions. So like, what is the child feeling right now? And you ask them to report what they're feeling. Are they feeling sad? Are they feeling angry? And why are they feeling like this? Are they happy? And what led them? What are the causes and effects of this? So just being able to understand their own senses first, and then looking at other people, and based on what other people are doing and saying, how they sound, the intonation in their voice, what their eyes look like. Is the person smiling but their eyes look sad? That happens sometimes. And so those are all part of identifying someone else's emotions. And then also if someone else witnesses something, like, what do you think they are feeling? What are they sensing?
Right.
And it starts with just basic, what is this person hear? What do you hear?
Right.
How is that different? How is that the same? Why doesn't that person hear what you hear?
Yes.
So just starting, those are more of the basics, starting at that point. And for children even younger who aren't even to the point where you can discuss others' feelings and emotions, you would start with just being able to discuss their own and identify their own emotions.
Yeah. And when you listed off all those those different things, I was struck by the fact that it can seem overwhelming to us as parents, but each and every one of those things can be taught individually.
Exactly.
And that, I think, I didn't get that before my son was going through ABA. I just wanted you to teach him to get it, that other people are feeling other things. But you guys have this list of things that come before that, that lead to the moment where they have that realization and can use it in real life. So when we talk about all those things, realize it's a big, long staircase to those things. And we were just watching in the A word, there was a moment, I don't think you got to see it, but there was a moment where he's transitioning and he's, and you get to see both the father and the mother's reaction to it, right? And the dad had said to him, in a second, you're going to be done playing the computer. And I always say I love this dad because there are lots of times that he is very humble about the fact that he doesn't get it right. And I get it wrong all the time too. But he says to the dad, time's up, time to turn off the computer. And the dad's starting to turn it off and the child's pushing against the computer and he's, oh! And the dad says, anger's really cool and it's really great and I know, and he goes into this monologue about all this stuff that I'm sure to this child sounds like womp, 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 right? Then a little later in the video, we see a transition that happens where the mom has said in a second, you're going to have to do this other thing. And so she takes away the thing and Jack Riley, and she says, I know you're feeling sad. It's sad. And then she distracts him. And just the difference between those two reactions. And I was talking about that earlier, but I loved the way she languaged the emotion for this child who does not yet have
those labels. Yeah, exactly. And that's how typical children learn to identify how they're feeling. A child falls down and the mom will say, oh, that must hurt. That must hurt really bad. How does it feel? Does it hurt? Is it okay? How can I make it better? And those are all just things we do normally on an everyday basis. We identify how others may be feeling based on what happened. And we teach those labels to our children, like, oh, okay, you're excited, aren't you excited? It's your birthday. You're excited,
Right.
And especially for kids that don't have language yet, it's so important to point out and language those labels for them and say, yes, you're feeling sad.
Yes.
You're sad.
And I love it because she's not trying to teach emotions in that moment to him, but she's languaging it so that when they do get to teaching emotions, maybe some of it will transfer, maybe it won't, but it's not going to hurt. So when they get to the point where they're going to teach him emotions, what are some different things that they're going to do to teach him his own emotions and other people's emotions? Because there's both, right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times you'll start with just pictures of people smiling, looking angry, or the therapist or a parent will smile, or they're like, how do I feel right now? And actually say, like, I feel happy. How do I feel? Happy. And have the child repeat that. So just starting with identifying others in pictures or in real life, and then really when the child's smiling and saying, you're happy, how do you feel? And then the child can say, I'm happy.
I feel happy. I love, there's a scene in the movie about Temple Grandin that they did on HBO where her aunt saw that she was having difficulty reading other people's facial expressions, and so she took a Polaroid camera and took a bunch of different pictures of her, and then she would go through them like flashcards. And one of them was Temple smiling, and then she would say, this is Temple happy, and she would look at it and go, this is Temple happy, okay. And that's ABA, and they didn't even know they were doing ABA, right?
Exactly. And using a mirror too, having the child look in the mirror and smile, like, this is happy. See how that feels, happy. Because there are some feelings that go along with that too, that you associate. It's not just a smile, but you feel something also. And so starting with just those small little steps and having the child look at how faces are different when people are feeling different emotions. But something to understand with this too, if your child is not looking at other people and seeing what emotional state they're in, it might be that the child is not even attending to the person's face, which happens.
So there's a step even before.
Exactly, and so eye contact is huge when identifying emotions, especially others' emotions. And so the child has to be looking at the other person, has to be making that eye contact. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not always just a smile.
Right.
You know, it might be the eyes crinkle a little on the sides when you smile too. And there are different, very small differences in the face that people have studied and shown, like this is different, and it's across cultures. There are basic emotions that can be identified in facial expressions across cultures. And so just having, building that the skill of having the child look at a person's face is so important, and that's often why we start with that.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of, you know, when you're looking at this with your child and saying, okay, I want to teach perspective taking, with all of our children, we always talk about how they're all different, unique, and their skill set is different, and really important to know where to start. And so, you know, first we were talking about older kids and how you can have conversations about these kinds of things, and if they don't have the ability, then, you know, with younger kids, we can be working on this. And even before that, even with babies, we can be working on having them look at faces and attending to faces and finding that reinforcing.
Exactly.
So it really depends on where your child is, skill level, where you start, but there's always a place to start.
There's always a place to start, and you can always move forward from wherever you're at.
Really, really fascinating. I want to take a break and come back and talk about that sensory perspective taking, about, you know, what can you see, what can they hear, and how you really implement that with kids, because it's fascinating to me. It was fascinating when you guys did that with my child. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back more with Angela Persicki after these messages.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I just want to remind everybody, we just saw the Home Depot video that we show from time to time. This Saturday is the first Saturday of the month, and they will be doing their kids workshop, and you can take your child for free, and I believe it is a Valentine's Day-esque sort of like a gift that they can make maybe for mom. And I know my child will be there. Check your local Home Depot store, your local branch, to see what time they're doing it. Usually starts around 9:30, and it's wonderful. Work on a great deal of skills. You can all those fine motor kinds of things. They work on painting, so it's arts and crafts. But there's a huge social skill component to it because they're there with other kids. It's a great place for them to meet other people and make friends and meet strangers, and really quite lovely. So check out the Home Depot. But right now, we are here with the lovely Angela Persicki. She is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst who has opportunity and has for a long time to work with children on the autism spectrum. Your particular area of interest, though, is research.
Yes.
And you are the assistant director of the Autism Research Group.
Yep.
And you also work in research and development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we so appreciate that. We've been talking a little bit about perspective taking and all the skills that go hand in hand with reaching a place where you can successfully participate in compassion and acts of compassion. And you were mentioning about perspective taking that a lot of times you guys start with senses and sensory perspective taking. Why do you start there?
Well, the senses are something that more people can experience. It's easy to understand that more people are hearing something or seeing something than it is to, say, understand that someone else is thinking something different than you.
So it's a little more concrete.
Yeah, it is. It's a little more discreet, too, in the environment. If something smells, usually more people in the room can smell it.
Okay. So you can when you say it's a little more discreet, you mean you can isolate it a little bit better? Okay. All right. So when you're teaching, first you teach the child their own senses, right?
Yes. So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? And even what do you smell with? What do you see with?
Yes.
What do you hear with? And so, when they get to the point where you're asking, what does this other person see? They understand that you see with your eyes.
Okay.
You hear with your ears.
So even starting with body parts, because I always want to remind you guys that sometimes both sides of this coin. Sometimes you think that all we talk about are things for little kids, right? And yet we want to go back to what is the earliest part that the skill comes into play, because you might have a 15-year-old who doesn't know that you see with your eyes. And if that's the case, we want to fill that in. We don't want to assume. But so this is a whole gamut of skills that even you and I could be working on at whatever age that we're at.
Exactly.
But if you don't know that you see with your eyes, we're going to go back that far.
And even for older individuals, when they're giving explanations of how to do something, you have to understand, like, has this person seen it?
Yes.
Do they know what it looks like? How much information do I need to give them? And so this is starting with sensory perspective taking. You may need to teach some of these things to older children as well, and young adults. And a lot of times, typical adults too have difficulty explaining things, giving directions, anything like that.
I struggle with that because we were talking during the break about that. I'm a visual person, and I know I can see it, and then having to language it to explain it to somebody else really is difficult for me sometimes, especially if I'm tired. Heaven help all of us if I'm tired, putting it in words.
Yeah, and even teaching, something like math.
Yeah.
And if you're able to do it, but the person does not see it the way you see it, it's very different. So, so this isn't just something that is pertinent to young children, but often, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old will need this type of intervention. So very young kids, very young, start to share their experiences through their senses.
Yes, absolutely. So I want you to get a visual, though, of the fact that where does your kid fit in on this continuum?
Exactly.
Where do we want to plug in and start teaching? Do you need to go back to teaching the body part, or you've got that and you could start at just doing the senses for themselves? What do you see? What do you hear?
The functions of the body parts. Too,
so that would come in between. So body parts first, then the functions of the body parts, what do they do? And then you can get into what do you see, what do you hear, what do you feel, all those different senses. Okay.
And then also, along with that, you can go into why don't you hear that? So add in the negation. So, if the TV isn't on, and say, why don't you hear the TV right now? And the child has to explain, because it's not on.
Okay.
And that is a very difficult skill too, because
Right.
the child has to explain more like a cause and effect relationship.
I was just going to say,
why.
now we're into cause and effect. Okay, great. So we're getting that all these different components and different pieces of it. But once the child understands when their senses come into play and what they can see and what they can hear, then how do we teach sensory perspective taking?
Okay, so then you start with something very obvious. So does she see it?
Yeah.
Does your friend see it? Does Molly see the tree outside? And yeah, she does see it. Does she smell the popcorn cooking?
Right.
Yeah, she does. And if that is the case too, it's like if the child says, I don't know, like, well, do you smell it? Is she close to you? Do you think she can smell it too, because you're both in the same room?
Yeah.
So even breaking it down a little farther too.
Yeah, because you know, when we talk about these things, it sounds like, oh, all you have to do is ask and the child immediately knows, and it almost never happens that way.
Yeah.
And then is it with sensory perspective? That's a mouthful. Sensory perspective taking that we get into doing the barrier as well, or is that more advanced stuff that the barrier games come in?
I believe that's a little more advanced.
Because what I remember was at a certain point, because Jem really had a hard time with this, and I remember at a certain point, but I don't know if it was barrier games or when it was, that we were having to, we had a foam core board that we could put up, and he would sit on one side and there would be objects that were there, and I would be on the other side, and I especially remember Peter Farrig saying to him, you know, there'd be a car there, and it was a lemon that was there, and he said, okay, what do you see to Jem? And Jem said, I see a lemon. And then he would say, what does Mom see the lemon? And Jem would say, yeah. Even though there was this partition that did not allow for me to see the lemon.
So that is more like, that's a little bit further than just sharing each other's senses. So we both see the same thing. We both smell the same thing. And then you get into two people seeing different things.
Okay.
So why doesn't Mom see it?
Right. And he didn't get it.
Yep.
He would sit there and he could see the lemon, so he would say that I could see the lemon, and Peter would literally have to take him and say, let's go look. Let's go stand where Mom is standing. And he would stand on the other side and say, now look at the table. Do you see the lemon? And he would say no. And Peter would say to him, why don't you see the lemon?
Yep.
And Jem would say, because the thingy's in the way, right? And he would say, okay. And then we'd go back around, and you would think he's going to get it, right? That we'd go back and he would say, okay, Jem, can you see the lemon? Yes, I can see the lemon. Can Mom see the lemon? And Jem would go, yeah. Then they go back and no, like, why aren't you getting this? Just patient. Let's go sit where Mom's sitting and see if she can see it. And they had to do it again and again and again. But the moment that he got it was amazing. And then I think then they did another object, so that it wasn't just about the lemon. Then it became about the truck, and he didn't get it again, and we had to go over and look. But I think it was when he eventually got the truck that then we went on to the third item, and he got it.
Yep.
He got it, and he got it forever. You know?
Yeah.
Now, did he generalize it to absolutely everything? No, I'm still working on that, right? But it was just fascinating to me, because I was going, oh, he doesn't get it, he'll never get it.
And that's what we do a lot. It's called multiple exemplar training, where we provide,
is that what it's called?
Yes, where we provide a ton of different examples, and we keep teaching them until we get to the point where the child is generalizing to novel stimuli. So we're going to teach a lemon, we're going to teach a truck, and for some kids you have to teach, a ball and keys and shoes and maybe 10 or 15 other things, and numerous trials of each and every one. And then for a lot of children there is this point, and we haven't determined in research what skills require a certain number of exemplars, what children will require a certain number of exemplars, but there is a certain point where you start to see that generalization.
And also the fact that we started with that foam core thing, but eventually it became other stuff. Like sometimes it was was on the other side of the kitchen counter. But once he got it with the foam core board, and it took him a really long time to get it with the foam core board, but once he had that, he generalized it to other locations. That isn't how it's going to be for everybody. Your child might get it the second time with the foam core board, but have a harder time understanding that it applies to other circumstances. But fascinating how we teach our kids patience. Is key for us.
Exactly.
Patience.
And as you can see from that example, it's it's a process, and that is a simple, like very simplified version of perspective taking. But that's exactly what we're trying to teach, is that he sees things through your eyes.
Yes.
So he sees, or he understands that what he sees is different from what other people see.
Right. Absolutely. And so then how do we get from this example of the lemon and the truck and all these other things, how do we get to the point where they literally will, across all the different circumstances that they have more success taking perspective so that they can be compassionate? How do you get from there to there?
It's a process, and as we mentioned too, it's not easy for everyone, even us. It's very difficult to get to that point. But they have to go through like teaching processes in real life and see real life examples of, oh, this person's sad.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're sad. So maybe what happened? Why are they sad?
Yeah.
Why would they be sad? How can I think in the way that they are thinking and feel how they are feeling? And that is a whole a larger topic of being able to relate events to each other. So relating that when someone else feels sad, I know what that feels like. I've experienced that. And this gets into it's a lot, and it's a huge repertoire of skills, but they've been broken down into their smaller parts. And so at some point, you may even have to go through trials of teaching the child, he's sad. How does he feel? Why does he feel that way? How would you feel if you were in that situation? And there's also there's a lesson even on predicting how someone will feel if they don't get what they want. So if they wanted ice cream, and then mom tells them, no, we're not getting ice cream today, how will they feel?
Right.
And how would you feel in that situation? But how would you feel if it was something you didn't like too? So we want the child to understand that just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't like it.
Right.
So I don't like ice cream. I wouldn't care if I didn't get ice cream. But Jimmy really loves ice cream. So how's he gonna feel? And if he's crying, have you felt like that before? Have you felt sad about things before? And so it's a lot, and it's a long process, but through behavior analysis, we are able to do that. We are able to get the kids to a point where they can understand how a person's feeling, and we can't actually say that they feel compassion, because we can't see that.
Right.
But we can get them to the point where they understand.
Right.
And I think
they demonstrate it.
And they demonstrate it, and they know what to do if a person is feeling that way. And I think that's more of what we get into with empathy.
Yeah.
They understand what a person's going through.
Yeah.
And so they are able to act in a different way.
Yeah. And it's still, I keep going back to the fact that there are hundreds of lessons that you can do with a child to get them there. I think about, by the way, when schools test and psychologists test, one of the things that they do a little bit later on with a child is they show a picture of something, a line drawing of something, and you can see that an event has happened, and they'll ask questions, and the child has to infer from the picture what's happening. There's one that I can think of where they show a child who is crying sitting next to a bicycle and is holding their knee crying, and they say to the child, what do you think happened? And why do you think it happened? And what do you think she's feeling? And they have to be able to put together that the bike is there and that she must have fallen off the bike, and that what does that feel like? I mean, it's a whole process that they have to be able to go through. There's another one where they show a clock and it says, 10 minutes after 9 o'clock, and it's in a workplace, and there's somebody who's looking very anxious and a boss who's looking very stern, and they ask, okay, what do you think is going on? They have to notice the time on the clock to say, we think that this person is late. Obviously, they've been late before. The person is mad at them. And you can do this with line drawings, and you can practice this kind of thing to get them to look at and infer all these different things and take the perspective of the people. It's just amazing when you think about it, and a little overwhelming for a parent, but I always go back to, well, if it gets the job done, what are we doing that's more important than that? It does take time. It does. But it adds up. What are we doing that's more important? I can't imagine anything that we're doing that's more important.
And these skills are really easy to practice just at home in the natural setting because people in the family will feel different things all the time. Toys will break, things will fall, people will get excited about gifts they get, and so there are so many opportunities to practice these exact skills.
That's a great point, because we're always talking about that every moment is a teaching opportunity. And I know you think, oh, but I got to go to OT, and I got to go to speech, and I got to take my kid here, and they've got this lesson, and you're just constantly on the go. And yet in the car, there's all kinds of opportunities. I can remember having to wait in the car with Jem someplace, and we watched people having a conversation, and we couldn't hear. And so we just talked about, what do you think's going on? What do you think the relationship is? A little game that we play. Do you think they're related to each other? Is that a guy and a girl on a date, or are they brother and sister? And what makes you know that? How do you know? What's telling you that? And it becomes a fun thing. We also used to always watch American Idol. We listen to the singer and turn down the volume and watch the judges talk to the singer and say, do you think they liked it? Do you think they did a good job? How does the singer feel about what they did? Who's angry at who?
And that's great, and especially with TV shows, reality TV shows,
I know.
all the time. And you'll see how you can predict others' emotions and what will or will not happen. And you can see, like, even with American Idol, you can see a singer come in and just think that they are amazing. So, and you could talk about that. Why do you think this person thinks they're good? Did their family maybe tell them? In the past, obviously they got through the first round of this show, so there's been some reinforcement there, and just even talk about those things, and how will they feel now that they've heard this from the judges? Will it change their mind? Are they going to not believe the judges? Just things like that, and those are fun things to do with your children, but just watching TV shows.
And then you can translate it into the play date. I still sometimes will say to my son, because sometimes he'll miss a cue at a play date, and so we kind of backtrack, and when things start to unravel, and I'll say, take a look at your friend right now. How do you think your friend is feeling right? And by the way, I do this in front of the friend. The friend always appreciates it. I say, how do you think your friend is feeling right now? And he'll look and he'll go, oh, they're upset. He missed it, right? And I'll say, well, why do you think that they're upset? And he might say, I don't know. And then we say, well, what can you do if you see that your friend is upset? How can you problem solve? Or sometimes they'll go, well, I think he's upset because I'm not playing this game with him and he wants to, all right, what do you do when that's the case? And problem solve it in the moment. He's still young enough, and the friends are still young enough that they think it's cool because they're being heard. Great, things are going to change because my case is being stated here. I know I'm just like 7 seconds away from that not being cool anymore, and he already said to me at a most recent play date, Mom, you're embarrassing me. We'll talk about this later. So, but get it while you can.
Exactly, and that's always a good thing to do before play dates. What is your friend like? What does he usually want to play with? What do you like to play with? Are they the same? Are they different? So how will he feel if he doesn't get to play with this?
You know what I did though? I did this before, and I just throw out to all of you, cautionary statement, be careful, because sometimes our kids are incredibly literal and they want to please, right? And we had a play date just this last Friday, and it's a boy who's in his class, but he has a younger brother. And we had them to our house during the holidays, and the younger brother comes, and I was the younger sister. I totally get this. And the two older boys played when they were at our house, and the younger brother was just all, he's like, they're playing this and they're not sharing. I kept having to remind my son, you have to include the younger brother. So we went to go over to their house last Friday night, and I said, in the car on the way over, I was like, now, it's really important that you don't leave the younger brother out, and I talked about that the whole way over to the house. And of course, here comes the older brother. He's like, all he's doing is playing with my brother. He came here to have a play date with me.
Oh.
And I said to him, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Because I felt so bad that your brother was left out last time, and then we had to leave because the play date was over, and Jem felt really bad about it. And so be careful.
Yes, be very careful. But the good thing about that is that he listened.
He did listen. He did listen, but he didn't get reinforced by it, because then he left and his friend wasn't, so he was like, Mom.
He didn't just say to you, okay, Mom, I'll do it, and then do something different. He actually took the rules you were giving.
Yes.
And so that is a great thing, too, that just talking about it before might actually have an effect on the behavior.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We see that all the time.
And now you learn that you need to include all the brothers in this situation.
Well, and I need to take his perspective a little bit more and be clearer. Is the thing that Temple Grandin said to me last week. You have to be clear with what you say to your kids. Don't be wishy-washy, because then you're going to get something you don't want.
And also, like you said, taking their perspective, you have to understand that they might not understand it all either.
Right.
So if you say, you better play nicely.
Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, so, and, a lot of times, that, again, we take that for granted, and we're like, well, we told them to do this, but look through their perspective.
Exactly.
See what they heard and what they are feeling, too. Maybe, like, what you told them is something that they just really don't like to do.
Right.
And it's understandable.
It is understandable. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much more that we could be talking about, but I get so excited about the different things. And somebody has, and you guys are so good at this. Right as I'm saying goodbye to them, you guys send in a message, and I caught it this time. They say, hi, Angela, could you please share some ideas or lessons to teach the functions of body parts? Thank you for the great discussion. Anything quick before you go about?
Just really looking, we start with what do you see with, what do you smell it with, what do you hear with? And if that's difficult, you can always cover the children's ears while music's playing, and then take them off. What do you hear? What do you hear, to see that you are actually pointing to the body part that they are supposed to identify.
Yeah.
We use prompts. We say, we could even tell the child, it's your ears. You hear with your ears, or point to them, what do you hear with?
Yeah.
Point. And so just going over and over those different ways, and then, like I said, or covering the child's eyes. What do you see with? And then removing your hand. And so what do you see? Oh, you can't see it now, so what do you see with? Those are your eyes.
Right. Yeah. That errorless learning, giving them the answer too. And if you've got a smaller child that you're helping to bathe, great opportunity while you're washing objects to talk about what they do, and objects. Body parts, I'm talking
what
about.
do you feel?
Yeah.
So, if you put a wet paper towel on the child's hand, what do you feel? Is it dry or is it wet?
Yeah.
So why do you feel that? Oh, because it's touching my skin.
Yeah.
So there are many ways, but using a lot of prompts, and even giving the child the answer.
Yeah. And I also think, so bath time is good with a younger kid. Where is a good place to go for that kind of thing with older kids is to a museum. And they have very interactive things in museums now, what can you hear and what are you hearing it with? It's very reinforcing for kids. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we are going to take a break, and during the break, we're going to debut the next segment of the interview with Temple Grandin, which kind of goes hand in hand with some of the things that we've been talking about, with all the different ways that she was helped and what's important for our kids, what kind of therapy. So take a look at this. We'll say goodbye to Angela Persicki, and we'll be back to finish out the show after this, a couple of questions with Temple Grandin. What do you think about ABA treatment?
ABA is the one that's documented, but I think that's what I think is important with little kids, the intensity. If this kid's 2, 3, and 4 years old, he needs 20 or 30 hours a week of intensive early intervention, working one-to-one with an effective teacher. And an effective teacher knows kind of how just hard to push, because you've got to stretch these kids. If you don't stretch them somewhere, they don't advance. You push them on them too hard, they go into sensory shutdown. The worst thing you could do with an autistic 2-year-old is to do nothing with them and just let them sit there rocking. And when I was very young at 2.5, ABA type things were used on me, but it wasn't called ABA in that day. You know, my teacher would hold up a cup and she'd speak slowly. You got to speak slowly to these kids because there's auditory processing problems. She'd say cup, and then I'd say cup, and the teacher would praise me. You know, that's very similar to ABA. You know, ABA in its original form is a little kids program. The whole idea is you're trying to get language jump started. And I like the more flexible kinds of ABA. You got different levels of kids. I had ABA type stuff when I was young, but then after I pulled out of it, I didn't have to go through elaborate things of getting ready for school. I still have this habit now today. I lay my clothes out the night before that I'm going to wear, so when I'm sleepy I can just get them on. And then you have other individuals where they've got to do very structured, breaking down the task analysis. This is where after you get out of the little kids and you get them talking, they kind of diverge into different levels of functioning. And a type of ABA program that'd be suitable for a very severe kid would not be something you'd want to do with a mild Asperger kid, because you're going to bore them to death and make them hate school.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Autism Live. And so that was the amazing Temple Grant, and we're going to have more videos that we're going to be showing you on a regular basis. And she's going to join us via phone. We'll let you know more about that as well. I asked earlier in the week if there was anybody, because we've been sharing Autism Speaks today. We have another guest from Autism Speaks tomorrow to do an interview. And I asked if anybody wanted to write in and tell us about their experience with Autism Speaks and how it had helped them. And we got this beautiful, it's really a disservice because I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing, but it's a beautifully written letter from a mom who's been on the show before, Carrie Mallory Thompson. And it's just amazing, some of the things that she says, and she is a beautiful writer. And I want to read a little bit of it as we get to the end of the show here, but we're keeping an eye on the time. Okay, so I want to start with the fact that she said that I really didn't. When she was on the show earlier, and she said I really didn't touch upon how Autism Speaks had changed my life. The first time autism was mentioned was at my son's 2-year checkup. When I heard that word, I went numb. Thinking to myself, okay, not my son. I immediately made a phone call to a friend of mine whose son has Asperger's. She told me not to do any research and just stay off the internet. She suggested I go to see the doctor that my son's pediatrician recommended and go from there. She said that there was so much information on the internet and that not very much of it was accurate. Therefore, I trusted my friend. I stayed off the internet. That was a very hard thing for me since I am an answer person. I want answers now, not in 60 seconds. I research everything. So again, not researching something this huge was very difficult. Everyone told me he doesn't have autism. He will talk when he is ready. Walking on his toes is cute. Flapping his hands is just him showing he is excited. Do not let them put that label on him. Because, we all get these kinds of advice and... Anyway, she says, being the person I am, I wanted to know. So I took my son to the Southwest Human Development, and he saw Dr. Kessler and his team of doctors and therapists. After 3 hours, Dr. Kessler sat me down and gave me the news. He told me that my son was at risk for autism. Because he was so young, they didn't want to give him a diagnosis of autism till he had the opportunity to go through some intensive therapy. So they weren't holding off on the therapy, they were just holding off on the diagnosis. I think that's a really important distinction to make. They didn't say, well, we're going to wait around and see. But in the state of Arizona, at risk is looked at as the same as a diagnosis of autism as far as services provided through the state's early intervention program if the child is under the age of 3 years old. I sat there, again numb, as he proceeded to talk to me about what autism was, what they observed in my son, and what he could be looking at future-wise. Finally, Dr. Kessler finished talking to me and asked me if I had any questions. I only had 2 questions. The entire time I was there, I asked him, is this my fault? What did I do to cause this? Then I broke down in tears, and Dr. Kessler explained to me that it was nothing that I did or didn't do. After lots of tears and several tissues, Connor and I walked out of his office with some literature and a sense of what now? I went home for about 2 days. I avoided life. All I wanted to do was hold my son in the hopes that mommy's hugs would fix him, but knowing that they wouldn't. Finally, I started looking through some of the literature Dr. Kessler had sent me home with, thinking maybe something in there would help me make sense of things. I found lots of websites that Dr. Kessler trusted, lots of agencies such as SAARC and CARD that offer resources. I think I visited all of those websites he recommended and other sites. I was amazed. I think I missed it. I was amazed by their yes, and almost all of them referred to or had a link directing me to Autism Speaks. Eventually, I did click on it, and when I did, I stopped looking at all the other sites. I was amazed by their website. Facts about autism was the first thing I focused on, then research, then family services. I was amazed by all the free toolkits, which we talked about today with Lisa Goring, and the resource guide. So much information. I was instantly enthralled. I signed up for this and that and that and this. That lasted for 3 days. Then I was right back to being numb again, no knowing how I was going to handle this. I was overwhelmed. All of a sudden, on a Sunday afternoon, my phone rings. I don't normally answer unknown calls, but for some reason I did. Hello, this is Carrie. With much hesitation, I respond. Is this Carrie? With much hesitation, I respond, yes, it is. At that moment, my life changed forever. Hi, Carrie. This is Amy Hummel from Autism Speaks. How are you? Again, with hesitation, I replied, okay. Amy then told me that she was calling to check up on me. She had seen that I had signed up for several things off the Autism Speaks website and wanted to know if I had any questions or if she could help me with anything. She asked how I heard about Autism Speaks, and I told her my story. Amy was an angel at that moment. She helped me to realize that I basically needed to get off my and start getting my son the help he needed. We probably talked for a good half hour, if not longer, and I can honestly say that after that phone call, I was a new person. I was energized, I was motivated, I was eager to find the answers I didn't even know the questions to. Love that. Told you this is a great letter. The very next day, I signed up for the Autism Speaks walk. I had an appointment set up with a representative from the state's Department of Disabilities Early Intervention Program. I had a website started and a Facebook page going. I love, just amazing. I needed support. I needed to know where to go. I needed to hear other people's stories, both good and bad. I needed to stop hiding under a rock. So from the moment Dr. Kessler told me Connor was at risk from autism to the day I woke up, 5 days had passed. 5 days wasted, bless your heart. 5 more days that my son was behind. I was not going to let another 5 days or another minute be wasted. I've said to you before on the show that we all have that period of time, whatever long that it is, and that for some people it's 5 days, for some people it's 5 years, for some people it's longer than that, and there's everything in between. We all lament it. But 5 days, and a lot of us wish that it was only 5 days, right? And that it's only about to approach that in the next month, on February 10th, will be the 1-year anniversary of her child's diagnosis. He has since been diagnosed as autistic and not just as at risk. We have taken place in the Autism Walk, in which we raised over $2,000. Really amazing. She continues to write, I volunteered to be in the Autism Speaks Walk Committee. Connor has endured 3 different types of therapy and just 3 weeks ago started preschool. Very amazing. Connor is still nonverbal but has started to communicate using sign language. Connor is the sweetest, most loving, most caring, most fun, most most energetic kid you will ever meet. The thought of where he would be right now if I had not gotten that phone call from Amy Hummel really chokes me up. I'm sure that at some point I probably would have done something to help my son, but that amazing phone call that I received from Amy changed my life. I throw out Autism Speaks' name anywhere and everywhere I go. When I hear people bad talking Autism Speaks, I get extremely defensive and I speak up. When I believe in a cause and it hits this close to home, you can bet that I will back that cause with everything I have. Autism Speaks, their website, their resources, and their Arizona representative, Amy Hummel, all changed my life and helped me to change my son's life. For that, I will be eternally grateful, so grateful, in fact, that on April 1st, the beginning of Autism Awareness Month, I will be getting the Autism Speaks puzzle piece tattoo with my son's name. I look forward to the Arizona Autism Speaks walk this October and participating in the committee, yet again. And then she writes that she watches the show every day and that she's loving the show. And I thank you so much. You were a great guest. And this is great writing, by the way. I hear a book coming. In any case, we are out of time, but what a great thing to end on. We will have another representative from Autism Speaks with us tomorrow. If you have questions, if more of you would like to write in, we love that. Emily's showing you some of the different ways that you can communicate with us because we love to interact with you. We really do, and this was very, very moving and something that really important for us to hear today. Also want to remind all of you that today is the very last day that you can apply for a grant in this phase from Autism Care and Treatment Today, Act Today, www.act-today.org. Go there, apply for a grant. We had Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson talking about it yesterday. Another grant phase will come, but why not get your paperwork in for one this time? And also want to remind all of you that we'll have a full show tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, going till 3 p.m., and then 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Time. So a lot more that we have to cover about compassion, a lot of things to talk about, not the least of which is getting this hair off of my head, shaving it for compassion. We'll be talking more about that with you tomorrow. And we're giving away the cow in the book tomorrow. Go to our Facebook, like it there, and follow the rest of the directions so that you can win the cow or the book signed by Temple Grandin. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.